Alright. So I've got potentially a scammer calling me, people. Hello?
Hi dear, this is Mike from Phone House. How are you doing today?
I'm doing fantastic, man. How you doing?
So I'm good, thank you sir. Basically sir, we are running a promotion on the newly launched mobile phone iPhone 13 Pro Max, Samsung S22 Ultra, or a brick phone of your choice along with unlimited tariff plan. So may I know which mobile phone you're using right now?
Oh, I don't have a mobile phone at the moment. Sorry.
Okay sir, no problem.
Are you not curious to find... He hung up immediately. Did you hear that?
Yeah. Very, very questionable salesman.
Yeah, like, oh my god. I love his reaction, just, okay. It's like he had to slowly process. I was like, hey, wait a minute. And then when he realised I was trolling him, he hung up. Usually they stay on longer to annoy me.
Yeah.
And then I annoy them back. So, shall we get on the podcast?
If you want.
Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to Bill and Jaru Discuss Monsters. I'm just sticking with that title from now on. We've pretty much stuck with that for a majority of these, so welcome, Jaru.
Hey.
I think you cut out as you said, hey.
Oh, let me try again. Hey.
There we are. Good enough.
So what are we talking about today, Bill?
We are talking about Resident Evil Code Veronica, the game that made me rage so much that I punched my drawer.
Perfect.
If you are curious, people, I have a full Let's Play in the description below. I should have just quit that game, but you know what? Like, I was determined. I was determined, and I just wanted to just trash all over the game. And you know what? I can fully criticize the game. I played it beginning to end twice. Like,
Wow.
I got to the final boss fight, but because I gave Claire, all my weapons, and there was no way for Chris to get those weapons back, I had to try and fight the final boss with a pistol and a knife. It wasn't going to work. But yeah, I'll get to the final boss later. So, Resident Evil Code Veronica, Let's Play I've played. You've watched a Let's Play of it, haven't you?
I've watched several, and I rewatched something, one of them, as well as some reviews in preparation for this video. For context on my experience with Resident Evil, I've watched playthroughs of every game except for 5 and 6 of the numbered games. Like the spin-offs I've not touched. So
Yeah.
1, 2, 3, 4, Code Veronica, and 7 and 8 are the main ones that I've... Oh, and of course the remakes. All of the remakes. The only game that I've dabbled with them occasionally. I've played a few of them for like a couple minutes here and there. But the only game I've played through start to finish is RE4.
Really good game. I'm looking forward to the remake of that.
Yes, I am also looking forward to it because I think there's a lot of room for improvement.
Yeah. I mean, when you look at Resident Evil, the original Resident Evil 4, it's a fun game, but obviously if we're... After playing the remakes, to go from that type of storytelling and drama to that, yeah, it's a bit off-putting for some.
Yeah, it's a bit wacky. It goes from very dry, serious survival horror to Captain Wacky and versus the villainous Captain Evil Wacky. Like, it's very strange. The tonal shift is pretty wacky.
You'll never stop me, Batman, for I am Mr. Wacky!
Yeah, and here are my wacky henchmen. One of them literally called the Big Cheese.
Oh yeah, oh my god, that was actually, that was a nickname Sadler gave one of the monsters, wasn't it?
The first one, who I thought was going to be a way bigger character than he was. But I digress. Back to Code Veronica.
Yeah. Okay, here's the thing that's kind of interesting about Code Veronica. So, as we're about to go into it, I think it's an okay game in the first half, and then it gets shit. So, because I played it twice, on the second playthrough I knew where everything was, so I was more prepared. Now, what's interesting about Code Veronica, this might come as a shock to people why the game might feel different from the previous games, it wasn't made by Capcom. So, this was during the whole Dreamcast era. Sega wanted some more exclusives, so they made a deal with Capcom like, yo, how about you put Resident Evil 3 on the Dreamcast? And Capcom originally agreed, but they were working on a spin-off game called Resident Evil Escape the City, which was meant to be like a spin-off. And then they got another team to work on the sequel for Resident Evil 2 on the Dreamcast. But then, funny enough, they were so worried. Now, this is what I'm going through what I looked at online, because believe it or not, Code Veronica, it's hard to find a development story online. It's like the developers just don't want to talk about it.
Understandable.
Like, I tried to find so much. Like, I've gone onto forums like, hey, people, what's the development story? I looked on the official wiki. Nothing can really be said about Code Veronica's development, aside this basic story here. Now, Escape the City Resident Evil, Capcom was so worried that it wasn't going to sell well. So, what was their genius strategy? Called it Resident Evil 3 Nemesis. So, Code Veronica was made the spin-off when that was originally going to be Resident Evil 3, and the spin-off Resident Evil Escape the City became the proper sequel. Because
it's...
Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
Sorry. It's an ironic little twist because realistically, you could just looking at the narrative, you can tell that RE3 was the spinoff. It's literally taking place in the same city at the same time as RE2.
They reused a lot of assets as well. Like, I think there was only, aside Nemesis, but he was just a reskinned Tyrant from the second game.
Oh yeah, I could believe it. And like by contrast, Code Veronica's story picks up with Claire, one of the main characters from RE2, and immediately follows the next step of her story. So it's literally a sequel for Claire, and it's the most direct sequel to RE1 that we've gotten yet.
Plus, it has the search for Chris, the main character of the first game who disappeared.
Exactly, and this was the conclusion to that arc. So you can definitely tell that this was originally meant to be the sequel, which makes the fact that it only released on the Dreamcast unfortunate.
Yeah, because big shocker, because the Dreamcast didn't do so well, unfortunately so did this game. A lot of exclusives, which were so amazing, just unfortunately because they were made exclusive on the Dreamcast. Don't get me wrong, I love the Dreamcast. That was the console I played over at my dad's a lot as a kid. But I'm not going to be blind. It's kind of like the whole, being a DC fan these days. You can't deny when something's gone shit, it's gone to shit.
Yeah, and one of the issues with the Dreamcast was that the game selection was very limited. And if you were like me growing up with the Dreamcast, not only was it kind of hard to get new games for it, but you were pretty limited in what games you even wanted to get. It's like you had Sonic Adventure, and you're like, what else do I want? And if your parents don't let you play M-rated games, then you're not getting Resident Evil, bro. So
it was
it
plus Japanese exclusives.
Oh yeah, the game did get some after the Dreamcast flopped. The game did eventually get ported to PlayStation 1, I believe, but at that point it was too late, really. Although plenty of people did still end up enjoying the game. That's why most of the time when you look at people talking about the game, there are people who played it in their childhood. There's very few people who were adults who played it when it was new and who are still fans to this day, which I think says a lot about the game.
Yeah. Like, okay, people, if you love this game, you know what? More power to you. You managed to find more enjoyment in it. I do love Resident Evil. I think I've dedicated a lot of my Let's Plays to Resident Evil. I've played the high ends of it, from the remakes to some of the classics, to definitely some of its downfalls, but then to its resurfaces with its newer games, Resident Evil 7 and 8. Code Veronica, I wanted to go ahead and start playing the spin-offs because people had a lot of positive things to say about the spin-offs. Now, what bothers me about this game being another spin-off, because when I played Resident Evil 4 after the third remake, they mentioned Albert. I constantly mix that up because they're so similar. But yeah, in Resident Evil 4, they just name-dropped Albert, saying, "Oh yeah, you work for Albert," and I was just like, "He's dead."
Yeah.
He got impaled by a tyrant. Did I miss something? Was there an end credit scene where he was like, "Dun dun dun, Albert's still alive"?
Yeah. And the funniest part is that even though he's officially reintroduced in Code Veronica, if you didn't play Code Veronica X, which is like the expanded version, he completely... Yeah. Code Veronica X came out later, and while it's not a direct improvement, like it improves some things, but it's kind of like a mixed bag. It also adds a couple cutscenes, like it adds a cutscene in Claire's campaign where Albert is reintroduced a little bit sooner, which makes his appearance later on slightly less jarring. But because that got...
Oh wait, was that the bit where he approached her when she was about to go into the mansion? So I did get that cutscene.
Okay, yeah. Then you were probably playing the later version. But in the original version, it didn't have that scene. He just shows up. He just shows up in Chris's campaign, and so it's very startling and random because it's like he gets totally murdered in the first game, and then he's just gone for 2 and 3. And then he's just suddenly back with superpowers, and he's fighting Chris. And it's like, it's not that much more. It's even, it's not that much more shocking and sudden in Code Veronica than it was to just casually mention he's still alive in 4. They don't really foreshadow it at all.
It's even more jarring because there is another Resident Evil spin-off on the Wii. Did they not learn their lesson on the Sega Dreamcast? And it's a House of the Dead style shoot 'em up, which it shows exactly what happened to Albert after he got stabbed. He just got up, so it turns out he injected himself with a virus before he confronted the tyrant. Somehow he must have knew that the tyrant was going to kill him or something. And yeah, then he just shoots his way out before the place explodes. Again, in a spin-off, like, he's a main antagonist. Like, imagine if the MCU started doing stuff like that. Like, for some reason, like, imagine the next Avengers film, they reveal Thanos is back. I'm like, and how did that happen? It's like, oh, you had to watch Moon Knight Season 2 and then WandaVision Season 2. It's like, what? But... why do I have to watch those when they're not even part of the movie timeline? Those are spin-offs.
Yeah. And what's funny is, like, from what I understand, with the original Dreamcast version, it also came with a DVD called, like, Wesker's Journal or whatever, and it's a recap of the events of RE 1, 2, and 3, told from Wesker's perspective of the events.
That's just even more confusing. Was he just watching those events? Like the second and third game?
Yes, literally. He was literally watching. Like, he was watching in RE... Like, they mentioned in RE2 that Wesker was involved with the G-Virus program, but it was kind of just assumed, like, oh yeah, he was involved before he got murdered. But nope, he was hanging out from a distance watching, and, like, he recorded the combat data of the Nemesis for reasons. Okay. And...
actually, that does kind of make sense, because in the first game, I'm not sure if this is in the original, this could just be in the remaster, when Albert does get impaled, you can loot him for ammo, but there's also a note from William talking about the progress he's made on the G-Virus, so I guess there is some continuity, but unless that was
that's pretty good foreshadowing.
Unless that was added in the remake, I'm not sure.
That was definitely added. I would be shocked if a game as old as the original RE1 had any idea they were going to do a sequel.
I might look into that later.
Maybe so. But what's funny is that DVD story thing with Wesker, it's not even canon fully anymore.
Oh, what the fuck?
Yeah, they like include some details like about him like kidnapping Sherry at the end, and the theory is that this was part of a scrap plot line for RE4 to have her be the one who you're saving rather than what's her face.
Right. Okay. That would have actually.
But
been
that
interesting.
never. Yeah, but that never happens. That means that part of the Wesker diary or whatever it was called is just non-canon now. And so it's like, okay, I mean, that's not very... Talk about confusing.
Yeah, I think the spin-offs have definitely opened the floodgates for a confusing narrative now in the lore.
Yeah, it's... I mean... Yeah, it's a bit messy, to be certain. And one thing that you point out, so RE3 and RE Code Veronica were in production at the same time, and I forget which one came out first. It was probably RE3 that came out first.
Yeah.
But Code Veronica came out just a couple months later. So it was also a case of, like, if you're just finished playing RE3, then you're probably not, like, ready... You're probably not going to be looking for a sequel yet. It usually takes like a couple years. So if a lot of people probably just assume there wasn't a sequel yet in the form of Code Veronica, because why would there be a second RE sequel in just a few months? So a lot of things contributed it to being a bit less viewed than other RE titles. But what's funny is that another kind of hint at the fact that it has a very devout fan base, but a fan base that even the fan base clearly knows the game has problems, because a lot of people were upset that they were doing a remake of RE4 but not Code Veronica, because everyone thinks RE4 is like God's gift to man, and I think it's just ironic that the same people who love Code Veronica are like, it desperately needs a remake.
I agree.
It's like,
I'm going to say more about it at the
so
end.
much that it could have done better. But yeah, so I actually think there's plenty of good reason to do a more serious, grounded reimagining of RE4. But that's another topic.
There is actually a demo mod for Resident Evil 2 Remake on the PC, where they are remaking the game with Claire's model, improved mechanics and stuff like that. It looks
I've
really
heard about
good.
that.
It looks good. I've seen some screenshots and gameplay. I do wonder how they're going to do Code Veronica's boss fight, including some other boss fights. Hopefully they'll be a lot better.
That'll
than
be
they were.
tricky.
Yeah, I guess this is a good segue to talk about the gameplay as well as Code Veronica's story.
Very good. Which one would you like?
Okay, so I guess let's talk about Claire's story. Now, going off the remakes and of course that Netflix movie that came out a while back, which happened, I think. No, I think that happens after Resident Evil 4. I could be wrong. The timelines are confusing.
Yeah, and they retcon things constantly, so.
Yeah, it's like they reference the fact Leon saved Sherry, but saved what's her name? Yeah, Ashley. But they'd never reference everything that happened in 5 and 6.
Yeah, and then you've got like all these Resident Evil movies that are like completely like they're loosely inspired by the games, but then they're not really canon. So it's
do you know what? After playing the games now, I can't look at their version of Jill and Leon and be like, those are good characters. I'm just like, wow, you guys are terrible.
Yeah, they kind of butchered the depictions of the characters in the movies, from what I remember.
Oh yeah, it's bad. I originally just saw it as a fun zombie flick as a kid, but after playing the original source, I'm like, yeah, that's bad.
Yeah, admittedly, I kind of melded the RE movies with there's some other movie series about a lady fighting vampires and werewolves. I forget what it's called, but I fused it together with the Resident Evil movies in my head because the protagonists I thought were the same person. But yeah, so my memory of those movies is very blurred.
Alright. So the game starts off with Claire. Honestly, I forgot I was playing a Resident Evil game. Claire going through some sort of Matrix thing. Oh, thought you would crack yourself a beer there.
Diet Pepsi. The man's beer.
I'm a Pepsi Max type of guy. Do you have that in your country?
Diet Pepsi?
No, Pepsi Max.
Oh, I don't know. I only drink Diet.
Huh, weird. Right, we don't have Diet Pepsi over here. We have Pepsi Max, which I guess
Anyway.
is Diet Pepsi. Yeah, that's more interesting than the story, people. I'm just going to say that. The story about...
Fair enough.
When can we get that in again? We've had tofu missions in Resident Evil. Can we get a Pepsi can?
You know, they probably can't afford it.
Right, so... okay. Okay, I want to actually beat that. I know I was just doing that for a joke. There are some interesting elements of the story. I will say that much. Unfortunately, it's just kind of overshadowed by the very bad... honestly, Claire's story is a good summary of an OC character hooking up with the main character of a series.
Oh, that is a very good... that is a fantastic summary of him.
Yeah, like, okay, so... Oh yeah, let's finish the wrap-up. So, Claire is going all Matrix fighting, which I'm assuming are Umbrella guys, but they just look like regular soldiers just trying to stop her from trespassing.
Yeah, they don't really explain it as thoroughly as they could have.
Yeah, it's like...
It is Umbrella, but it's like, why are you here? What did this have to do with finding Chris, you know?
Oh, do you know what? That's actually going to come into another play later. Okay, but... Like, my headcanon is like, she's just run through a military base and the soldier's like, wait, careful, there's a helicopter, lady! We're under attack! And then she killed a bunch of soldiers, so so they arrested her. That's my headcanon. Like, Claire just went nuts after Raccoon City.
I mean, fair enough. One thing I will say, and a lot of people point this out, is that her character design in this game is pretty good. It's one of her more iconic designs, alongside the original RE2 design. And she looks pretty cool.
Yeah, this is where the remake kind of got more of an inspiration, because when you look at Resident Evil 2's original design, it's very questionable. Not that it's over sexy, that's not, but it's like, I don't know, man. It's like she's trying to stick out, but not too much. Like, she's got a biker's jean jacket and jean pink shorts. It's like, and a fanny pack. It's like,
like it. I think it is admittedly a bit clunky, but I think that was more a limitation of the game engine than the...
Well, originally she was going to wear a biker outfit. She was meant to be some sort of famous race car driver, but then they scrapped that story, which you can actually play online, the original story of Resident Evil 2. What was originally
like. I remember seeing something about
Birkin doesn't look as grotesque as he does now, which he just looks like a fat zombie, in all honesty. Who just says Sherry a lot.
Sherry. And yeah, no, I do like her design. She was kind of like the red female character to Jill's blue character design. I actually, unlike Jill in RE3 Remake, I think Claire in RE2 Remake does a really good job of keeping the identity of the original design while updating it to feel more realistic. Whereas I think Jill's update doesn't really pull it off as well.
Something I've always kind of said about a lot of the newer Resident Evil games, even up to Resident Evil 6, really, the characters don't stick out as much in terms of their designs. Like, they just they just look like people, which, you know, it's not bad.
Like army people.
Yeah, it's not bad designs. It's just like, I don't know, I did like the colourful ways you could identify them. It's kind of like, you know, red versus blue. You know, it's not just like the personality of the characters, it's also the colour you identify them with. If they decided to go all military design, but when they, in like later seasons, when they started going a bit too over design, it's really hard to kind of, not in terms of red versus blue characters, you know, the newer ones.
Yeah, and I'd say RE4 still managed to keep the designs looking sufficiently unique. I think Leon's jacketed design is pretty decent. Once he loses the jacket, he's not as unique looking. But
yeah, I can agree.
Wesker, and a lot of the characters in RE5 look really generic, but Wesker looks great as a Matrix man.
He was a lot better in 5 than he was in this game. Because honestly, when I was at first excited to see Alfred again, Albert, but I don't know, he just seemed like the type of guy that would go, oh, I'm in this game, goodbye.
That's lit. That's him in most of the games.
Well,
after 1 and before 5.
But in 1, you know, you were kind of getting the impression he's hiding something, but, you know, he was your ally. You know, it was good to see him again, 'cause he gave you crucial information. But then in this game, he just, goodbye. In fact, I was getting excited first. I thought he was going to, in a way, help you fight Veronica. But no, he's just all like, his whole mission was to get Veronica, or Ashley, and he just disappears like, oh, Chris, you can handle this. Even though the whole reason I started this freaking apocalypse on this island was to get to her. I'm leaving.
Is her name Veronica, or is that like, or is it something else?
I think her name was it wasn't Ashley. It was
something else.
It was okay. Technically, her name is Veronica. Okay, this is.
But that's like her code name.
Yeah, like, okay, it's going to be. This is the interesting part of the story, which we'll get to later. Let's talk about the new characters they introduced for Claire's story. So.
Oh god.
Okay, so the first guy, the security guard. So on to the next character.
Oh yeah, like what? Like you have a whole little mini quest with him, but it's just like whatever. He's like a less memorable version of what's his name, the dude in RE2. It's like, although I guess that guy probably wasn't that memorable in the original RE2.
I can't remember his name, but no, he made more of a bigger impact. I'll put his name on screen because you did feel for him because he tells you the story about what happened, and then the third remake shows you panicking as he was about to kill.
In the remakes they do him Marvin. That was it.
Marvin, that was it. He did.
Yeah, no, the remakes
Brad.
do him good. But like in terms of like the original game, Marvin may not have even existed. It's been a minute. I don't remember the original game very well.
No, I don't think he was actually in the game. I could be wrong, people. I'll put it on screen just to prove us wrong and make us look like fools.
We don't need help to do that.
I mean, yeah, you got that Arcane video for that.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
I'm joking. It was a good
but
video.
no, thank you, Alexia. That was it.
Okay, yeah. Now, there is some interesting facts about those characters. But yeah, security guard, honestly not important. He appears again as Chris level, but on my playthrough, I never saved him when I originally thought I was meant to. It wasn't until after I looked it up on how to get the machine guns, I went back to save him. But it turns out he died because I progressed further into the game, so I was like, oops. But on my second playthrough, I did save him, but again, he just gives this generic thing where he gives you the lighter back and he goes, I can't wait to see my family again. Black. It's like,
yeah.
I'm just there.
I was 2 days away from retirement.
You could have stuck any cliche line there. Chris, I'm your father. Black.
It's Morbin time. What?
Okay, I hate that meme, but that would have been amazing if... I
also hate it, but I felt ethically obligated to make that joke in a video at least once.
Okay, I would have loved that meme if Capcom were that determined to go with that. They updated a lot of their older games just to slip that somewhere.
Oh god, terrible. Anyway,
yeah.
Who's next NPC?
Oh god, yeah. I guess it's time to address this. Steven.
Steve Burnside.
I don't care what his fucking last name is. Okay, when he was first introduced, I thought he was going to be that... When he was first introduced in the opening, he tries to kill Claire. I thought that he was going to be that secondary character you play as. Most Resident Evil games have that secondary character you play as. Even if it's like briefly. And Stephen was that character, but they tried to build some like... Okay, first of all, I watched your anime and MaxView Trades recently do a video about romance and stories, and one of the big things is that, the characters need to have a good, like, dynamic, and, they need to have good chemistry. Boy, these two did not have good chemistry, and honestly, I summed it up earlier, it is just... The developer was such a big fan of Claire that clearly, when they got the opportunity to do a game about her, he put Steven in as like an OC of like, I don't know, meant to be some romantic option. Because
it's one of the least believable romances in fictional history.
No, people, if Jaru, you as well, if you saw my Let's Play of it, whenever they were doing that moment that Steven staring at her, I was like, wait, you two have a thing? I don't remember that. You tried to kill her multiple times.
Yeah, and there's a part of the game where he literally fucks up and forces you to go on a detour because he's too busy staring at her ass.
Yeah,
it's
that
like,
was...
We're supposed to like him? Like, what the...
Oh, and then he's like, oh, it's my fault. And Claire's like, no, it's not. It's like, no, it's literally his fault.
It's a million% his fault.
That's like me if I was like, oh, I gotta be careful with this box of grenades, otherwise we could all die. Like, oh, that's a pretty necklace. Oops. Oh, it's all my fault. No, it's not, Bill. It's like, no, actually, no, it is. I was holding the grenades. Like, I was in control of that situation. Now, I mean, gameplay-wise, they clearly wanted to, you know, extend the game longer, but they could have done it so many ways. Maybe that was the moment Albert or Alfred or Alexia came in and stopped them both, or something like that. They didn't have to make Steven so incompetent that you're meant to feel sorry for him. Don't get me wrong, one of my favourite moments with Steven, I know it's saying positive, that moment with his father as the zombie. Admittedly, it was a bit comedic. He unloads a full clip in Claire's direction to kill him. That was a bit too comedic for me. Now, on one hand though, I thought that was going to, you know, show more Steve why he's very distant from everyone. But no, just that's the only scene he really talks about his father. So it's like, we never learn why they were here. We don't know what's their connection to Umbrella. You know, were they experiments? Were they some whistleblowers? No, just random prisoners. We don't even know the father's name. Or maybe it was in a diary, but because we're not sure if we can connect that diary to Stephen or the father, we just assume that's just some other prisoner.
Yeah, it's Steve is awful. I hate Steve. Steve's the worst.
That tends to be the general consensus.
That's the consensus. Some people like him. For some reason.
That 2%.
Yeah, like I guess it's saying some people like Steve is like saying some people like smallpox. It's, you know, it's like it's true. There are people out there that probably like smallpox. That doesn't change my opinion on smallpox. And I say that because Steve, like smallpox, is a plague, and I am so glad that he died. And it's thank God that he does not appear in other games, because holy Christ, is he annoying! Like every time, every one of his scenes, every line of dialogue, God, and the voice acting. Yeah. How is the voice acting worse in this game than it was in the previous game? It doesn't even make sense.
Now, originally I was thinking, okay, this must have been some English poor dubbing. Like, surely he has a much more better voice act. No, even in the Japanese one, he's unbearable. It's like, even in Japan, they couldn't save this character. But yeah, Steven is a character that... I will say, his segment where, you know, he's suddenly like, I'll protect you, Claire goes on a killing spree, because, you know, apparently Claire was struggling before, but hey, it saves me ammo, I guess. That was a pretty fun segment, but it didn't make me like Steven anymore. It was just, oh cool, I got the ability to dual wield machine guns, but in all honesty, that doesn't matter.
That was one thing I did hear praise for, was the ability to dual wield and aim at different targets.
Yeah, do you know what? That's actually a good segue into the gameplay aspect for Claire and Steven. And yeah, this game did introduce new mechanics. Not a lot, but for one, it introduced the ability to increase your inventory slot. Holy crap, that was so good to do.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, you could only do it once for both characters, but even then, that small difference, whew, that helped.
Yeah. And, you know, we already mentioned the dual wielding. And another thing they standardized in this game was having the button that lets you automatically turn 180 degrees, which was definitely an improvement that was needed.
Yeah, it didn't actually help me out as much. A good mechanic, and it does get improved in the later games, but
it's one of those things where it's like, it's not the most useful thing in the world, but it's a quality of life thing, where it's just, if you're going to have tank controls, having that makes it that much less painful.
It didn't help against the hunters, let me tell you.
Yeah,
those guys, even with quick turning, they got some cheap slashes on me.
One thing that I've seen lobbied against Code Veronica, and now that you know when you know the context of its development, you understand why it happened the way it did. But it's because it's viewed as a sequel, and it came out after 3. The fact that it's missing some of the mechanics from 3, or it has alternate worse versions of those mechanics, notably dodging. The fact that RE3 had it, and then a few months later, the next RE game doesn't. It feels like, what the hell happened? Where did it go? Of course, when you know that they were in development at the same time, suddenly it makes sense.
And different studios. Capcom did
different
Resident Evil
studios.
3. That's why, because I've played the original Resident Evil 3, and yeah, Resident Evil 3 was way better to play than this game. I don't think these guys have played the games properly. I think they must have seen the games, they just never really touched them.
Well, if you view it as a direct follow-up to 2 rather than 3, it doesn't feel as egregious, but even then, there's problems. Most notably, in the gameplay mechanics department, is the fact that in RE2, not RE2, in RE3, much like in Code Veronica, there's a moment where you switch characters and who you're playing. The difference is that in RE3, when you temporarily switch from playing Jill to playing Carlos has a completely different inventory. And so it doesn't matter how much ammo you had as Jill, once you start playing as Carlos, you're good. You don't have to worry. Code Veronica, on the other hand...
Okay.
Without any logic, it's not even logical that this is the case. It's like, why would Chris have Claire's gear? But for no good reason... gear is shared between characters, and but not actually. It's not the gear that you have equipped. If it's equipped to your character, you're fucked. If you left it in the chest, then you can access it, which leads to some unfortunate. And if they've warned you about this, if they're like, you're about to switch characters, if you do, if they gave you just a simple warning, which a lot of future other types of similar games I've seen do, they'll warn you and be like, hey, point no return, might want to make some steps. Not in Code Veronica. This is a hardcore game where it's like, oh, you've soft locked out of being able to beat the game. Sucks to be you.
And people, if you saw my Let's Play, I was one of those victims.
Yep.
I was
You're not the only one.
I was Chris blocked.
Yep.
Okay, before we do get to more of those mechanics, I feel like that's good to say for Chris's segment.
Fair.
Claire's segment did introduce the dual wield mechanics. You find that one zombie with those 2 pistol machine guns. First playthrough, second playthrough, I loved that mechanic. First of all, dual wielded in this game was better than in Resident Evil 6. Because in Resident Evil 6, Leon could pull out a second pistol, but all it did was just... It was just an extended mag, really. It didn't offer anything else. It just allowed you to shoot more before reloading.
Yeah.
But in this game, though, when I occasionally encounter monsters will be coming at me from both sides, and depending on the angle you're at, Claire will aim sideways and start shooting, or she'll have her arms spread out a little bit to hit the zombies, around her that are coming towards her. Which, that is a good mechanic. It's a shame that didn't really get explored more. I mean, obviously, when they went to third-person perspective, I guess, that mechanic sort of was unneeded, but it was good. I don't have any complaints about that mechanic. It was a good mechanic. People were not completely hating on Code Veronica. It did some good things. Improved inventory system, backpack. But where does the gameplay, for me in particular, fall apart? Well, that, people, is the monsters, which I really didn't want to say that for a game that's made itself popular with the monsters.
Yep.
So, okay, to go into this though, let's go back to, like I said before, Resident Evil 3 and even the first game. You didn't really have to waste time fighting a lot of the monsters. The whole point of Resident Evil is that it's a survival horror. And Caddy Chris made a good point about this. Survival horror doesn't mean hiding from the monsters and, trying to avoid, enemies. Well, I guess that is kind of it, but the other thing was...
Survival horror is a very vague term, unfortunately.
Yeah, but one thing that I've always kind of viewed survival horror is that you have limited resources. What makes it survival is that you need to choose when is the right time to defend yourself or to even avoid combat. And the remake's done this really well, but even the original games did this well. Like, no joke, you could get through the entire first game without killing a single zombie. I nearly did, except for a few moments where, you know, I got myself into a bad situation, or I didn't burn any corpses and caused the zombies to become redheads. That's in the first game. But again, that was because I didn't...
They became Irish.
You want some? I'll give it ya!
That's why they're more aggressive. It all adds up.
Oh my god, that's the twist. Resident Evil 9, Ireland.
It's anti-Irish propaganda, is what it is.
Ah, of course. I always did find it weird when I saw Queen Elizabeth with PlayStation and Resident Evil in the background. That's
hilarious.
You're not going to see that on our 10 quid notes.
But no,
we're just going to have Albert on the next 50 quid notes.
Ridiculous. Sorry, back to what you were saying.
Yeah, okay, so you can get through the first game and the third game, maybe even the second game. I haven't played the original second game. But you can get through without ever confronting a zombie or majority of monsters and save a lot of ammo. When I played the Resident Evil 1 remaster, I saved so much Magnum ammo from not wasting it on hunters that I think I had like 30 bullets against the Tyrant and I made him a bitch. I don't think I was meant to save my ammo for that, but I did and it was good.
Hilarious.
But then, in this game though, I tried to play like that, but it really felt like I was unable to avoid a lot of combat because it feels like they push you in a lot of claustrophobic space. Like, they'll just spawn a zombie. Sometimes they'd even spawn a zombie in that area because I noticed this on my second playthrough when I found the AK-47 on my second playthrough because I didn't lose it the other time. Yeah, there was moments I was like, hold on a minute, I cleared this room of zombies. There's no way these guys got in here, because in the other rooms, there's just no way there was no corpse in there, there was other monsters. How's there zombies in here? Whereas, at least in the remakes as well, including even some of the originals, when a new zombie arrived, you got some sort of, like, hint to where it came from. They either smashed through a window, or they were one of the corpses you never burned. But, no, Code Veronica, I feel like they just threw in zombies in there just to be, you know, ammo wasters. Which for a survival horror, that's bad.
Yeah.
Like, if you're going to be a survival horror, yet you're going to force me to fight monsters and waste my ammo, then I'm sorry, that's a really bad gameplay. Especially because the zombies in this game are still randomized on their health. Like, one moment you'll instant kill them with headshots, but then other moments they take like 20 bullets to put down, and yet you're forced to happen to confront them.
Yeah, and a similar problem is that, you know, one of the rules in the games leading up to this was if you kill an enemy, like if you fully kill it, it's dead. It's like if you shoot that zombie, sure, it might come back as a redhead, but if you murder it and then like blow off its head, it's gone. You don't have to worry about it. It won't come back later. They don't respawn. If there's new enemies in an area, it's because something happened to cause there to be new enemies. Like, now there's hunters here. It's not just the same enemies respawning. But in Code Veronica, there are enemies who respawn, and there's nothing you can do about it, which means if you don't realize that's what's happening, you can waste a lot of ammo on enemies. Then you can't afford to do that in a survival horror, so it's kind of cheating in its own game.
Yeah, it really does. And in all honesty, man, they ruined the monsters in this game. They ruined them. Like, zombies, for instance, are just cannon fodder. Yes, they're cannon fodder in the previous games, but it was still intimidating when you confronted one. Now, maybe not in the third remake when you played as Carlos, because you had a machine gun and you could freaking Falcon punch them to Uranus.
Yeah.
But let's look at, you know, Jill's segment, the remakes of the second game. Even in Resident Evil 4, when that crowd of zombies was approaching you, that was an oh shit moment. Like, you know, first time you hide in a house and you're just being swarmed by these guys, and there's like
before you realize you can roundhouse kick them to, you know, Mars.
Even with that mechanic though, it was still intimidating. 'Cause it was like a never-ending force of these guys.
Yeah.
But in this game, though, they just feel like, oh, we need to delay the players from completing this segment. Throw in a zombie! And there's never a moment I felt scared when a zombie arrived, because there was no good build-up to any of them. Like when, of course, the first zombies revealed to you, that was pretty good. You know, they're bursting out the graves and everything like that. But later on, it would just be like, okay, this segment has no zombies. Okay, I'm going to leave and come back with this piece. Oh, there's suddenly zombies here. Like, no force of entry, there was no corpses there, just, oh yeah, we just took an Uber here.
Yeah.
That's what it feels like. It just feels like, I don't know, someone was playing Sims and they just dropped in a new family member into the area.
Yeah.
That's how it feels.
A very unhelpful family member. Yeah. No, it's, they don't play by their own rules, and another issue is that, and I've seen even people who like this game complain about this, normally with the fixed camera angles, they make sure to lay out the enemies in such a way that you don't get unfair combat situations where you're having to fight something you can't see.
That is true.
Not in Code Veronica. In Code Veronica, they're like, we're going to put a zombie around every corner. You're going to take a hit, and you're going to fucking like it. And
that really got on my nerves when I played through. Like, that was just cosy. And don't get me wrong, the original games did this as well, but they did it in a clever way. Like, I think I mentioned it to you before. So in the first game, you find a knife, or I think a grenade for Chris. And you get this tutorial saying, oh, the zombie grapples you. You can use this weaponry to quickly stagger them so you can escape. And then it's like, oh, that's kind of cool. You go around the corner, but the camera doesn't change instantly. And you're thinking, wait, is my camera broken? Then you see your character backing away and the zombie just roars at you. It's like, oh shit, I was duped. I was tricked. I was bamboozled. You know, it was a... You know,
it was a good moment.
Yeah, it was a brilliant way to... Not only did it teach you something, but it then gave you an opportunity to test this mechanic while, scaring you with a clever camera angle.
Yeah, it didn't punish you for learning a new mechanic, it just taught it to you in a memorable way.
And just to brag even more, I didn't even need to use that mechanic because it allowed me to dodge the zombie and avoid it entirely. Again, throwing that shade on Code Veronica even more.
Yeah.
The first game has this one beat. Like, the first game's a near masterpiece, especially the remaster.
The original, though. What are you hating on the live action cutscenes?
Okay, maybe there are some aspects of the original first game that
masterpiece.
Okay, the remaster is mostly a masterpiece. It's one of the best remakes I've played of the Resident Evils.
In terms of improving upon the original, absolutely. But no, one of the big issues with Code Veronica from a mechanics standpoint is just the fact that, and you'll hear people point this out, which is that it's full of so much stuff that punishes you for not knowing things that you couldn't have known.
Yeah.
Where it's like the backtracking is insane.
Oh my god, I got a comment about that, and oh my goodness, alright. Now, here's the thing that really drives me out. This will be a good segue to talk about Chris' story and even the villains, because we haven't really touched on them yet.
Oh, yes.
So, so once you completed Claire's story with Steven, I was actually getting pretty excited about this. So, you fight the Tyrant, and honestly, the Tyrant doesn't really play a key story role. I think it was just fan service, really.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah, the boss fight with it was pretty bland, and even the second boss fight, an interesting idea, you had to use the cargo launcher to try and launch it out your aircraft. The problem is, though, it's such close quarters, and it's nearly impossible to dodge his attacks. It became tedious. Yeah, not really much to really say about the Tyrant. It was just a fan service monster that showed up. And
gotcha.
But then, after you're done with Claire and Stephen, you then play as Chris, who... Now, this is the part of the story I was questioning. So, when you read the note, even in the original game, they had this. You know, there's that fake note from Chris saying, "I'm on vacation, I'm having the time of my life." Like, even in the remake, you could tell, like, that's not Chris. That doesn't sound like the man who's just been through hell and back.
Yeah.
Whereas
it's either... I forget what it was, if it was like planted by someone to make it look like Chris was fine, or if it was Chris making an obviously fake note in order to communicate to Claire that he was what he was actually doing.
Well, this is from the remake and stuff like that, but even in the original, they did have a note, but you know, Claire never really spoke anything about it. It wasn't until the remake she was like, "Nah, that's not my brother."
Oh, okay. Okay. Then I couldn't quite remember what the answer was to that. So.
Well,
makes sense.
I don't think there even was an answer. We don't, because here's the thing: Chris isn't captured by Umbrella. In fact, he decides to go save his sister. So now. Yeah,
it's actually like she actually totally fails to find him. He finds her.
In fact, one of the things that kind of bothered me was that when her and Stephen are escaping on the cargo plane. She's all going on about, let's get out of there. Maybe Hawaii's a good time. And I'm just there like, you do remember you were trying to find your brother, right? Like, that was the whole, that was the main thing that got you captured by Umbrella. And now you're just like, I need a vacation. It's like, your brother's still missing. But, don't worry, people. He's not missing. He's on a boat trying to find Claire. It's like, this is the part where the story I'm just like, how? Like, first of all, Chris, what happened to you? Where were you when Jill needed you, when she was being hunted down by a bazooka monster? And where were you when most of the rest of your team were being killed? And how did you find Claire?
Yeah, they kind of... A recurring problem I think I noticed in a lot of these early RE games is that they kind of just sort of don't explain anything and then like put the answer in supplemental material, and that's not really the best storytelling. And I paint that in very broad strokes because I'm not really, it's been a minute since I remember the specifics, but just the way they introduce Wesker like goes to show that the narrative of these games has not been super intricately well thought out.
No, I think, honestly, this is a good example of a story where, the wrong place at the right time sort of thing. You know, Claire wasn't meant to be there, but then she turned out she was, she is there, and, that was convenient for Albert. But then, then Chris has arrived, and, conveniently, his sister's here. It's like, just... so many things just fell into place for, like, a lot of characters.
Yeah, and it's like, it kind of makes sense that they had RE4 take place years later, because it's like, they were just so tired of maintaining a timeline that they kept contradicting, so they were just like, never mind, it's years later, everyone's fine, new story. And on the one hand, it's like, I get it, on the other hand, it's like, RE4 is so disconnected from everything else in the series. Like, Leon, it's like, it pays lip service to the other games. Mostly it just pays lip service to RE2. But even then, it doesn't do that much.
Actually, that even raises more questions. I think I vaguely remember this on my playthrough of Code Veronica. I think Chris references Leon told him about this location. It's just like, how the fuck does Leon know about this? He's still a rookie cop at this point.
Yeah, them going from Leon's a rookie cop just trying to be a good dude to, hello, I am Smooth McGroove, I kick ass and chew bubblegum. It's like, whoa,
but
what
not
the
even
hell?
that segment. How did he learn about this? That's the thing. Now, I'm interested to find out that story. Did Leon?
How he found out?
Yeah, did he do his own investigation? That would have been interesting to learn. Like, it doesn't make sense, and it's really lazy storytelling.
Yeah. And I will say, from what I remember, people seem to like the Chris campaign. Although they don't like that you just had to go through Claire's sections all over again.
Do you know what? No, I hated Chris's segment. Like, I guess it's...
Okay.
So let's go into Chris's segment now, and including the villains and everything like that. So, the villains of this game are... I can't really say you could call Albert a villain, really. He was just more of a side antagonist, you know? He was...
Like, you get one fight with him, but otherwise he barely does anything.
You don't even get a fight with him, it's a cutscene. Like...
No, don't you fight him at the end of Chris's campaign?
Nope. You fight...
I could have sworn you do.
Nope, you just... It's a cutscene where Chris is just getting the shit beaten out of him. He drops some girders on him, and Albert's like, peace out, yo. I don't know, maybe there was a Code Veronica XX that I didn't play.
They stopped at that. They didn't want any more X's.
Or they just did XX2.
Oh my god. Final Fantasy.
Oh, I'm glad you got that reference.
Oh yeah, I'm Final Fantasy. I was gonna say I'm a fan. That's not entirely accurate. Anyway, continue.
Alright, so... but the other villains were Alfred and Alexia? Is that her name? I'm probably saying it wrong. So many people.
Yeah, there's Alexander, and then there's the twin Alexandria, I think.
Yeah. We'll just call her Veronica, because that's who she is. Okay, so on one hand...
Code Veronica.
Yeah. Now, okay, it's kind of weird this game's called Code Veronica, yet you don't know anything about Veronica at the end of the game. She was one of the founding members, along with Alexander. But not only that, this was actually kind of interesting on Claire's...
Oh, Alexia, sorry.
Yeah, Alexia. This was kind of interesting in Claire's campaign, is that, you know, at first...
No, sorry. Sorry, I did to interrupt again. It's Alfred Ashford and Alexia Ashford. Never continue.
Yeah, it's gonna be annoying talking about these guys.
Yeah.
Okay, so we'll just call him Twin 1, who's the dude, and Twin 2. Alright, so Twin 1, you know, it was kind of interesting.
Sometimes. He's sometimes the dude.
Sometimes, but that was actually an interesting twist, is that a lot of time in Claire's playthrough, you thought you were taking on both these twins in different segments, and you know, and then you had that one meeting. Yeah, I didn't notice this on my first playthrough, or even in my video. They never showed Alfred. They only showed Alexia, which, you know, but obviously me not really thinking that, I just assumed it was both the siblings in there just talking in secret. But then, big surprise, I think it was when you were playing as, yeah, I think when you solve one of the puzzles, when you get the final amulet to escape with Claire, yeah, it reveals that when Steven shot him, that he was playing both his sister and himself. And it seems as though he wasn't fully aware of this either. But unfortunately...
Yeah, he's kind of got that, I mean, he's very clearly mentally ill.
Yeah, but not much got explored there. I was originally thinking maybe he was being manipulated by his sister while she was, you know, locked up in a tube. But not much really delved into those siblings' relationships. Aside this one video, which makes me think they were more than brother and sisters.
Knowing Resident Evil, I would not put it past them.
Knowing Japan.
Yeah. Well, you know what's funny is if they did remake Ari or Code Veronica, you know that that oh, I've already forgotten their names again. Alfred? Yeah, Alfred would be Alfred / Alexia / True Alexia would be like everyone's new favorite waifu.
Oh god, please don't.
What a trans icon.
I don't know. I don't think many transgender people would look at Alfred as a good person to connect to. I feel like the character from Bob's Burgers who sings Twinkly Lights is more of a better icon for them.
I mean, I guess whenever you have no icons to work with, you take what you can get.
But anyway,
but no.
Before we get cancelled,
the whole twist. Nah. I am so pro LGBT. They love me.
You're just making us sound bad, you know. People, we are just joking. We do we do support LGBT.
No, seriously, dude, LGBT comes up so much in Deltarune comment sections. You can't be anti-LGBT and be a Deltarune fan. It's practically impossible.
Yeah. So we're just having a bit of fun. That's the whole point of these. Just have fun, make fun of things while also complimenting.
Everything I say is sarcastic, so don't take it seriously.
Yeah, Jaru's like the most sarcastic person I have on this channel. Like, if you see early Death Battle podcast we did, he was like probably the most sarcastic bastard I had on here.
But no, so the whole twist of, Alfred's been pretending to be Alexia the whole time and that we haven't actually met the real Alexia. It's one of those plot twists that I might like more. Like, I can see why people like it. Like, if you find Alfred to be an engaging antagonist, I can see some of the seeds of why you'd think that. I never did. I thought he was hokey, and I think the twist is probably the only thing interesting about him.
Yeah,
and
he's entertaining. Like, I found him amusing with how overdramatic. You could tell the actor was having so much fun as Alfred.
Yeah, it's like his performance is one of the only times where it's like the over-the-top terrible voice acting actually kind of works a little, but it's not enough to like save his character and make him like iconic. He kind of reminds me of I forget his name, Salazar from RE4, but like,
why is it whenever we do this you have to disrespect my boy?
But like a worse Salazar.
Okay, we'll go with that.
Like, he doesn't have a giant mecha version of himself. Clearly, he's inferior to Salazar.
Oh, okay. No, you're talking about the midget guy. Yeah, I wasn't a fan of him that much. Okay, I'll give you that.
I think midget's a slur, so I might not want to use that term. It's considered a slur nowadays. So
I think it always was a slur, but
Oh, okay. People are just more on top of criticizing the use of the term than they used to be then. I think dwarf is probably accepted.
Or Gimli.
But little person is also acceptable. Point is, he was way more memorable. He pulled off that like aristocratic airs, but like kind of like lighthearted aristocratic character thing. But it's like if you made him less fun, but also made him the main villain. And it's like, it doesn't really work with Alfred. And no wonder you're mixing up Alfred and Albert. There's literally an Alfred and an Albert in this game.
Yeah, that's why I'm constantly doing that. That's why it's so awkward.
Yeah, there's an Alfred, an Albert, an Alexia, and an Alexander.
Yeah, well, he's only brought up in notes, to be honest.
Well, you do find a mutated version of Alexander at one point, apparently.
That is true.
According to this plot synopsis that I'm looking at.
But
no.
That was actually a pretty good twist as well. Like, learning that monster was the father, because when you see that earring, you are thinking, oh, that's a weird design choice for a monster. Then you see that portrait where he has that amulet on. You're just there like, oh, they did that to their dad.
Yeah.
That's fucked up.
Yeah. It's and a lot of people cite the twins as being really creepy and that they worked for them as a source of it being scary. Kind of then that those what's that movie called? The Shining, kind of that kind of vibe.
No, I watched The Shining. I loved The Shining, including the book. Those twins did not give me those vibes. Like, for the little time those twins were in the movie and in the book, they made more of a creepy impact than the ones in this game.
Fair.
There was one moment I legit felt a bit creeped out by the twins, and it was when Alexia makes a comment about a spider and she lures a giant spider to Chris. But in all honesty, I feel like that was more the spiders doing than Alexia, but still, her dialogue was really good there.
One issue that I think I would hold against the handling of the twins in the game is that you never really get to see them interacting or working together. You have Alfred, and then he dies, and then you have Alexia. You don't really get to see the twins working together. And I mean, that's a creative choice that they chose to go with. But it basically went from because Alfred was pretending to be Alexia, we basically went from having both of them to having just one of them. And so it kind of feels like, and Alexia's like even less memorable than Alfred. She's just like, hello, I am evil and crazy. I will now kill people. And it's like, there's nothing interesting with her at all.
No.
She's no Birkin, that's for sure.
No, like, the thing that made Birkin so interesting was that, sure, he was working for an evil company and his ego was responsible for his downfall, but you could see, you know, the guilt and the man trying to fight the monster within him when, even in the original game, like, you could see, like, there was still a human in there, but, you know, it was him fighting the monster, and unfortunately, the monster was what overtook him. So when you put him out of his misery, when you killed the monster, you felt like you were also putting William out of his misery.
Whereas, there was a nice Wolfman-esque tragedy to his character that made him way more memorable than most Resident Evil villains, especially all the mustache twirling, wahaha, I'm evil because evil, or I'm evil because I'm crazy. Like, give me the like torn up Wolfman Jenkins Birkins guy over any of these other people, because like the twins are never portrayed as being very sympathetic at all.
No, even in the remake, you know, when William Birkin saved Sherry and Claire from the Tyrant, you know, that was like, you know, one last moment of humanity to save his daughter, and you know, it was like that really great moment of like, oh, he's still in there, you know, and it made it even more sad. Then that same moment, that's when you see the monster take over. And, you know, it was sad, but in all the notes you read about these twins, the sister's a bit of a bitch to her brother, and they, like, the whole gimmick about Alexia is that she's the queen bee, you know, that's the whole thing. Like, Bugs is like the main gimmick of the monsters in this version of the game, which, don't get me wrong, Bugs can be made scary monsters. There was a whole anime dedicated to giant bug monsters, and it was scary, but in all honesty, to add that to the story of like the sister being the superior one to her brother, why? What did she do that her brother didn't do? Like, yeah, she was a scientist, but also clearly her brother was as well. And yet the brother just accepted being the bitch. It's like, why? Like, that just...
Yeah, it's... I guess that makes...
I read
Alfred...
all the notes, but nothing really gave a lot of their characters motivation. That's the problem. What is their true motivation? Like, every villain had a motivation. Albert, he wanted to create a superior human of super soldiers. William Birkin wanted to create, you know, the perfect virus to make an indestructible, you know, killing machine. And even Nikolai, in the remake of the third game, sure, it's a generic one, he's all about money, but it's a motivation. He's greedy. He wants money.
Yeah.
But
whereas with the twins, it's just like, I guess they're evil and they're crazy. It's like they don't really try to give them a lot of depth.
Even Salador,
which is unfortunate.
He had clear motivations as well. He wanted to take over America by using the president's daughter. There's a motivation behind it.
They had world domination. They had cliche motivations, but they had motivations. Whereas with, you know, Alexia, it's like, I guess, like, what is she trying to do?
I want to show why bugs are great. Or something.
Yeah, right?
That's what I got from it.
Which is a shame, because, like, I feel like there is an engaging kind of tragic character with Alfred. Like, if you had it be like, you know, he's this traumatized young man who gets so, you know, he's in such an unhealthy relationship with his sister that he gets bullied into like being in super codependent, and that's why he has to roleplay as her just to even function. And it's like, that could be a very engaging, tragic character, but they don't really go the extra mile needed to pull that kind of character off. And then Alexia herself is just another generic evil villain character. Like, she's no more nuanced or like, she's less. I'd say some of the lords in RE8 have more character than she does, and they're side characters. So
that's probably one of the few positive things you've ever said about the Lords in Resident Evil 8.
I mean, they have very basic characters, but they give them characters. You give them strengths and weaknesses and flaws. Whereas with Alexia, it's just sort of like they don't try hard enough to develop her, and she's more treated as this boogeyman that they want to bring back than an actual person. So by the time she gets back, she's just here to kind of go on a rampage for a little bit.
I tell you, before we get to the final bit about the twins, though, so I guess we'll talk more about Chris's segment and what he ties into the story and how this whole story wraps up. Include talk about the monsters that he mostly faces.